2022 Town of Monroe Planning Board regular meeting. Noreen, would you do the roll call?
Bonnie Franson.
Here.
Jeff Manson is absent. Pat Shea.
Here.
Nicholas Napoli.
Here.
Dylan Penn.
Here.
Louis Rivera.
Here.
And Robert Garstack.
Here.
Robert is filling in for Jeff Manson's membership this evening. With regard to the fire exits, there are exits in front of me. In fact, it says emergency exit only. There's one where you first enter the door when you come in, the main entrance, and then there's another off to this side that also takes you out to the patio. With that, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Okay, first item on the agenda is Owen Drive. Good evening.
On? Yes. Good evening, Joel Mann, Brachman Associates, on behalf of the applicant. The project on 20 On Drive, the SBL is Section 3, Block 1, Lot 9.1. It's a total of 5 acres. The proposal is to subdivide that in a 3-acre parcel. You can see that the property is partially in the URM, and there's a small portion that is in the SR20 district. So we are utilizing the URM zoning district, minimum of 10,000 square feet lots. We have proposed, so there's a 3-lot subdivision, 3 single-family homes. Proposal is to have public sewer from Orange County Sewer District Number 1. The water will be individual wells on each lot, and there is a proposed road extension in front of the property that will connect to that will actually run on the same pattern as the emergency access to the Smith Farm property. That's basically going over that property. There's a steep slope here, so the proposal is to build a retaining wall in the back of the houses to keep the property in a straight. We have, I believe we have met all the requirements in the bulk table for that kind of lots. And with that, I'm here to hear some input and comments from the board and the professionals. Actually, we got some comments from, we missed a month's meeting, so we got some comments from Sean. We addressed some of it, but not all of it, and probably by the next meeting we want to have some of the board's input, so on the next meeting we'll have the engineer, Mark Seamers from PMP, that will represent that project with more details.
So with that, Sean, do you have comments?
I do. So, Joel said that they were supposed to be at the last month's meeting, so I just reissued last month's comments. With regards to the EAF, I had a number of items there that needed to be addressed. The subdivision with, and did look at some of the sloped areas, since there is, the net lot area provision where steep slopes have to be subtracted from the total lot area. I would just ask Joel if you could maybe show or indicate on the plans where those steep slopes are being
shaded. You can see the shades, that's the steep slopes.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Maybe it's too light?
Yeah, I think so.
I have it, I see it on my plan here, but.
Oh, is it down? We'll take a look at that to verify the total of the 30% slopes. Then there was a number of items. So the houses are being proposed with well and sewer. So obviously the sewer main extension will need DEC approval, and you'll have to show those utilities. Well testing will have to be by the hydrogeologist. I believe since this is less than 5 lots, only one well will have to be tested at this point. But it appears that the total disturbance will be over 1 acre, so a SWIP will have to be prepared. And just one big item with regards to the roadway. So my understanding is that the existing Owen Drive within the town is private. And the applicant is looking to extend that private road and actually dedicate the portion that they're improving to the town. Now, this also connects to Smith Farm, which actually is private road, but with a site plan for its construction. So that'll have to be worked out with the applicant as to how that can be dedicated. If the portion of the town roadway will be dedicated, I believe that the initial or the first part of Owen Drive would also have to be dedicated. And then the question is, where, does there have to be a fire apparatus turnaround at the termination of the town road as it enters into Smith Farm? So I think more information's got to be vetted on with that regard.
Just for a little discussion, I believe till the property line, it is public.
I don't
No?
believe that's the case.
No? Oh, I wasn't
My
aware.
understanding, based on discussions
Wasn't
with the
aware on
highway
that.
department, where the village line is where it turns into private. So there's no portion within the town that's public.
Okay, that makes sense, but we are on, so that's basically at the beginning of the property then. The property is, we own the whole thing till the village boundary line. Yes, so it's part of this lot. Highlighter.
Right.
So just next to it is the property. If you can click just the other side of the line. Yes. Okay.
Right away for.
Yeah. Everything now there is our property, and we're planning to dedicate that to the public. It comes together with a little triangle that gets access to other properties. I don't know if we need to give it or we'll dedicate it to the other. But the point is,
Right.
the public right away.
No, this is tricky because I don't know if I've ever seen a portion of a roadway that would be dedicated but also be a through road. So I don't know if the fire apparatus turnaround would have to be constructed.
Interesting because technically our trucks are having access
Exactly.
to. So,
Right.
but we can still, in this beginning, in the first area, we can add a cul-de-sac here. Actually, where at the beginning, where it starts. So it will not cover the last two properties, but we still have, you see where the triangle is in the property. We have enough public right away to make a cul-de-sac there.
I'm thinking the cul-de-sac would have to be.
That makes it tricky, waiting there.
That's what.
Okay.
But what would be required?
Just trying to
Those-
find the parcel here, because I wanted to see if one of these parcels show it at all. I clicked on this one. That's supposed to be in the town. 15. Here's Owen Drive.
Like the portion private, that lot lines go.
Trying to find the actual lot. I'm getting, this is 17. This is, I think, Smith Farm, right? Also go down.
Up a little bit.
Oh, I see, there's a couple sheets in this PDF, so it's
Very
maybe on
top of the
page.
center.
Oh, got it. So it shows Owen Drive right-of-way on the tax parcel. It shows Week Specs Owen lot line change, 9192. And I guess the question is, is there any limitation? Well, you want to dedicate that to the town, but can you? Who else is maintaining that private road? Is there any road maintenance agreement? And I know this is accessing, the subdivision, so there must have been
There's
determined
like-
at that time.
There's like 4 other lots, or 3 or 4 other lots are accessing through that road. So there is, I'm not sure if there's a maintenance agreement specifically in place, but they work together, so that's what I'm aware. But it will be everyone's benefit to dedicate that to the town. That will open up actually a roadway, direct access to a public road for all the lots.
Not sure it'll be direct.
Is that access
what?
already there?
I'm not sure it'll be direct access with your proposed roadway, because it kind of goes, the roadway kind of goes off to the,
Yeah, it'll kind of be a branch off.
right. The roadway goes.
We dedicate,
Was this road and this entrance already approved as part of the subdivision? I'm guessing.
ready now?
Fire access.
Yeah.
So they allowed the fire access over a private road? Or is there must be an easement or
For
something?
Smith Farm, there's an emergency access easement over
This lot?
this lot.
Okay.
But that's different because it's not the entirety of Owen Road, because you have Owen Drive, rather, Drive. So the portion that stops at this property, then goes to Smith Farm, but Owen Drive also continues up to a few other lots.
Almost looks like this is just a series of driveways. And so this is the driveway to the house that's on your lot,
Existing house.
right? And then these several look like they're coming off of like a shared driveway, but is that Owen Road right in here? Or Owen Drive, or is that just a driveway off of Owen Drive?
Probably just a driveway, that's where it seems to be.
Okay.
Maybe it's a very narrow driveway, so it's not even a road.
Yeah, I guess my principal question will be, if this becomes a public road, then what's happening here? But we'll have to resolve that going forward. And ultimately, it's up to the town whether they want to take possession of that part of the road, so we have to find out.
Make it a private road. That's the best interest for the public in that area.
I'm not sure a private road would be permitted, because there's a limit of the number of lots that are permitted off a private road. And since Owen Drive, I believe, is a private road, I don't think you can propose any more. I think the limitation's already been met. Unless it would. And site plan.
Your comments? Okay, Ashley?
So as far as seeker goes, it would be an unlisted action. There's a few other involved agencies, Orange County DPW, DEC, and Town of Monroe Town Board. It is adjacent to the Village of Monroe municipal boundaries, so they will need to get notified under GML 239 as well. I saw there was a revised EAF that was submitted today. It looks like it addressed, I think, most of Sean's comments. I had one more that there's an existing house on the property, correct? That's going to
Yes.
be demolished. So if the description on the EAF and that on the first page include that the existing home will be removed, in addition to the creation of 3 residential lots. The entity disclosure form, I believe there were some blanks there, so if you could check that and make sure it's all filled out. It would be considered a major subdivision under the town subdivision regulations because it proposes a new road, and major subdivisions require compliance with the cluster provisions unless waivers allowed for subdivisions that involve 5 acres or less. And then you'll need a standard any subdivision, a tree plan, the house relocation notes, and all of that.
Trying to see the parcel on the map. So this is Quaker. This is the village boundary.
Everton is URM.
This is Smith and here, right? Here? Here? Because these two right here, right?
Top of that. Yes, this one, yes.
This is it, right?
That's the
Object, oh,
Smith Farm is up here
is
because
the
that
big
was
one.
already
Yes,
URM.
oh, I didn't know that you
But
took.
this one is yours.
Right.
Okay. So you had mentioned both URM and,
20.
okay.
Just a small portion because I see it goes through the upper lots across our SR20s. So
And these three are SR20s,
Yes,
for
those-
sure.
that's with that, the left small portion of the property.
Definitely at 10 is SR20. So I guess it's right in here. All right, we'll just take a look at it. Not in the ridge overlay, so, because that's on Smith. Okay. So with that, board members, do you have any comments or questions? We'll start to my left.
Nothing.
Nick? No? Pat?
No.
No, so I think we need a site visit. So Noreen, maybe you could schedule something so we could just get up there. Is the house occupied at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And is that a new house or an older house?
Not an older house.
Okay.
It's not that old. It seems to be more of the newer ones. I believe in the 1990s. You can check it.
That?
But
That it?
yeah, that's
That's the one. Okay.
very old, but it's not new.
If we look at the inventory, it says it's from 1999.
Oh.
Okay, so at this point, we're not going to take any actions this evening? Do we do that? Do you want to circulate?
Wanted to classify listed and or declare your intent to be lead agency.
Okay.
Joel could get me a revised EAF, just adding the description of removing the house in addition to the 3-lot subdivision, and then I could circulate that.
All right, so with that, I will make a motion that the planning board declare this proposed subdivision a unlisted action, and that we're authorizing our attorney to coordinate with the applicant in the circulation of the notice of intent. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Aye.
Robert Garstak,
Aye.
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so we can start that process. And then, Joel, anything you have on that Owen Drive ownership information? Do we have deeds for the property? Did we get that?
You have a filed map that shows the post right.
Okay,
I have a old filed map. Not that old. That shows actually the proposed dedication. I don't know from when, what happened, why
Yeah,
it wasn't dedicated.
I think
will get
anything
what
if
I
you could
have. I
send
did
it
some
in.
research, but because I was confused as you, so
okay,
on this how this works. So
all right, that'd be
I didn't
good.
find technically any easements, but there probably must be easements from the other lot owners. We'll get a title search on it and.
So
let
it
you-
looks like the property is owned by Ron Kosar?
What?
Was it owned by
He's-
Ron Kosar?
He's the.
So
That's,
he probably has a lot of information for the property as an
Right.
attorney, I'm
Yep.
gonna guess. So whatever we can get from him
No
would be
problem.
great. Thank you.
Changed, and I have him down. Homeland Towers are, what did I say?
Homeland Security.
We don't want them here.
If it's all right with you, can we just continue with Mr. Mann? All right, thank you.
thank you.
So does Joel. I'm surprised he's not gonna.
I have a schedule after that, so,
Oh, okay.
so I'm not losing any money on this.
Okay. All right, so next item on the agenda, we're skipping around here a little bit, is Sherry Torah.
On the last meeting here, and actually we have submitted a revised set of plans, and actually also a narrative that was submitted also to the ZBA. I don't know if you had a chance to review that. We had a site visit actually with Sean. Recommended some improvements actually to add some paving in the area. I'm not sure if my office submitted an updated plan after that. I don't think so. Okay, it was just get ready today, so.
My files got mixed up, so. Let me go to Sean's comments. Was the Allison Drive property, was that also called Sherry Torah?
Oh,
No? Because do I have Allison?
Patient hub.
Yeah. So I have that for some reason in my Sherry Torah files. Very odd. I may have accidentally moved something over, so. Okay. So, Sean, why don't we go through your comments?
So I'll start with the site visit. As Joel mentioned last week, Ben and I met out at the site. One of the items we discussed was the bus drop-off location. And actually, if you go to my pictures at the end of the comment memo. That one. The plan has barriers on the left-hand side, which would be the Jersey barriers that are shown in the picture. As temporary fencing to the right, which they call the barricades on the plan. So the intent is, and actually they've already installed it, is to have 3 bus drop locations for the girls to get off, and the school is just to the right off picture here. Girls to get off there and all of this is to prevent taxis from dropping the girls off on the other side of the buses and running in front of the buses to get to the school. So having the buses drop off in these locations prevents girls from running in front of the buses because the drop-off or the barricades block them from running in front of the buses. What Joel and Ben and I discussed was potentially having the taxi drop-off location on the driveway or along the driveway into the school from Larkin Drive so that the girls literally cannot run in front of a bus, for safety purposes. They would just walk up walkway, which is fencing, and into the. Might be easier to go down the site.
If I can find it, let's. Parking lit?
A traffic plan.
That one. So right now, this is where the Jersey barriers are,
That's correct.
concrete barriers, and we shouldn't call it Jersey. And these are where the fences are. Okay.
They show the 3 bus locations and where the drop-off areas are for the students. And then what we had discussed was right where your cursor is along the driveway entrance there, have the girls park, the taxis park along that to drop the girls off. They would go up the sidewalk that's adjacent right there, up to the school. So
that was originally where the bus drop-off was on the original approved plan.
So have buses come up this way and they can maneuver around?
Yes.
You've already tried that?
It's already set up like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is what they're actually doing right now.
Right.
And then where are the taxis doing the drop-offs here right now?
Yes.
Okay. And that seems to be working?
Or here or the other side. They're doing it the other side. So that's what Sean, like after the buses, after the barricades.
Right,
And we're up in here?
A little bit
a little
lower,
bit
closer
further,
to the
just in
building.
front of the first bus.
So somewhere in here?
No, the other side. I
Oh,
guess the
up
third
here?
bus. Yeah,
Oh,
that one.
yes.
Right in here?
So I suggested not to have the taxis drop off there because they are running in front of a bus there.
Yeah. The school agreed that it makes
Yeah.
sense, and
So are there
we'll
any-
put up a sign.
Are there any pavement markings or anything to indicate that buses are supposed to go in there and taxis are not?
Oh, but that's what I had suggested in my comments is for them to add signage so that the buses know to drop off there and the taxis know to drop off, adjacent to the walkway.
Okay. Yeah, because ultimately, all of this is supposed to be temporary. These are not permanent schools, so I don't know that we want to put anything necessarily permanent in, because then you just be ripping off improvements ultimately for, you know,
But we can put all signages and like striping, that's the way season.
maybe with some requirement for maintenance. You know, because if it's only good for a year, then you're going to have to paint it again, you know, until you relocate those or get rid of them. Any other comments?
Yes, so,
Back to your memo?
please. We also discussed, or Ben requested that, and you'll see on the plans, it's noted as gravel area where the bus drop-off is, and you can see in the pictures, it's all gravel from basically the girls' school over to the tree line where essentially the boys' school parking lot starts. So Ben had requested that be paved, and the rest of the site where deteriorating paving is, for that to be paved and improved. But then my understanding also is after meeting with Joel, is that there are considerations to change some of the parking lot configuration as they are building the pool as part of the boys' school. They have found that their walkway and parking doesn't necessarily jive, so they want to improve that kind of functionality and layout of the parking.
Actually, based on the way you suggested when we had a discussion there, it works better that way, and then it's very close to what it is now. We don't need that much of improvement.
Yeah, but I still think there's going to be some changes there, and, you know, Ben and I and you had discussed some changes to the circulation, so I think those improvements should be, you know, added to this application so that we can review it all cohesively, since it is, you know, essentially one site.
We'll add it.
Yeah, the big thing there was that the buses from the boys and the girls kind of commingle, and there's not great signage, and we almost did see a couple accidents as we were just standing there as it was time for drop-off. So I think that's going to be, you know, key and you know, easy to bring into this application. What else? That was basically, the one thing we didn't get confirmation on was whether or not the wall pack lights were installed from the last application. I think that'd be best to get from,
is
just
this
to
the-
make sure Ben is.
Is this the pool location over here?
That is,
Okay.
yes.
And what are the pods for?
What?
The
They have
pods?
some of the renovations, so they have storage there, temporary. That goes away.
Okay.
You can see the outside there. It was one of the conditions from Ben.
Okay. Good. Ashley, any comments?
Nothing really for me, other than just getting whatever is going to be requested as far as the circulation improvements added to the plan. And it does need to go to the Orange County Planning Department under GML.
So do you think there's enough information to circulate for GML?
I would suggest waiting until we get that revised site circulation
Oh, okay.
and the plans.
It's ready in my office. I will send that in a day or two to you.
All right. So with that, any comments, Nick?
Nope.
All right. Bob? Okay.
I have a question. If the drop-off for the taxis is going to be on Larkin Drive, for the taxis is not going to be on Larkin?
Not going to be on Larkin. So that driveway there connects to Larkin.
That driveway?
I wouldn't want anybody dropped off on Larkin.
this is the building here, right?
Correct.
Oh, I got you. So it's coming down from Larkin Drive on the driveway to drop the girls.
Right, so they come in this way, and I guess they're dropping off the girls here with the
Exactly.
taxis?
Yep.
And then you've created an area up here like this, For the buses?
Further,
here?
kind of where those cars are parked, yep.
Is all this vegetation moved or removed?
Just like brush one of.
John screen.
Yep.
I think actually,
What? There's some brush there, yeah.
Right, I have this all the way in, so is there something disconnected over there? Yeah, this is all the way in. Let me do it again. Okay, so you're saying this is old, or was stuff removed? Okay. Fix it?
He will charge.
Yeah, I don't think it's, yeah, I wonder if it's that connection over there. Does it seem loose or no? All right, well, yeah,
You're going to lose that vegetation?
it's already gone.
It's already gone.
Yeah, I don't recall that being on prior plans, but maybe it was.
All low brush with, it was always a
Was it?
collection of garbage there, so they cleaned it up.
That looks like trees.
Was some small trees, I don't know, maybe a dead tree. and
Now they're trees.
Every time you say trees, it goes away.
dead- So let's stop talking about it.
Okay. So, did you have any more questions? No? Okay. I don't. Pat?
I have no questions.
Dylan? All right.
I believe the trees are still there.
You do think
It's
the
on
trees?
on the picture.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, so that maybe your buses are here?
There, yes.
Right.
no, I
No?
think it's where,
No,
Okay. That area is. Okay, so those, by the U, those trees are gone. Okay.
in this picture, it's,
That tree right there, if you go up, that was the only one I had a concern on with the flow, on the left side of that picture by the telephone pole. Just overgrown, and is the flow going from the girls' school to the boys' school and then out back to Larkin?
not proposed that way on the plans, but that's something that we're looking at because the boys' school's drop-off is on the other side of the school, and they come around and come through that gate opening that you can just see, the yellow right there. So they come out there, and what we'd like to do is try to get the boys to come out, if you're heading back towards Larkin, on the left side of those trees
Okay,
by the utility pole, so that the buses are all exiting one lane.
I think we definitely need signage, like bus stop here, et cetera.
Right.
We may need some extra trees too, but we'll let you know. So where are we now in the application process?
I think once the revised plans get submitted, if they're sufficient to go to the county, that would be the next step.
Okay. So,
You've previously determined it was a type 2 under seeker as an expansion of an educational facility under 10,000 square feet.
okay, so we just need to get the plans in, and then if they're in order, we can send them off to Orange County. Okay? And in the meantime, we'll just work on putting that traffic plan together and signage and something that makes sense, because you're probably going to be there another however many years. What's the request?
3 years, but I
Depends
believe.
how long the
years.
planning board meetings will take.
I believe it was last September, so it would be 2 more years from
2 more
around
years.
this time, right?
Okay.
And if you're going to be adding that, bringing that other, is it a separate parcel, Boys School? So just make sure you include that, I'm not sure if it's in the same ownership or not, but to include any owner's endorsement or any type of authorization you'll need to bring that parcel into this application.
Yeah, I think things like, so I'm just looking at this, which looks like it's a little, striped walkway. I think we need something more obvious and meeting,
I will add it with
yeah, MTUCD standards, et cetera. Okay. All right,
problem.
thank you. Yes, there is, George. We won't be able to do any minutes since we just got them, so we'll do them at the next meeting. For the August, you're saying for the August minutes? Okay,
Jeff, you don't have
okay.
one April. I don't know why we didn't do the 1 April
Okay, we'll have to look at it next time.
yeah, we can't do that tonight.
Oh, I know why, because you had the date on the file was.
I didn't make a note as to why there was a problem, and I'm like, I have to ask tonight, because I don't know why.
Yeah, it was the date, so whatever I
Okay.
was pulling up was not the actual minutes that we had to approve. All right, thank you. If you want to come on up.
Evening. For the record, my name is David Kenny. I'm an attorney with Snyder & Snyder. I'm here tonight to represent the applicants Homeland Towers and Verizon Wireless. With me tonight is Vincent Xavier, Regional Manager of Homeland Towers.
So not Homeland Security.
I think we would just do it without a permit.
Okey dokey.
Just real quick for some housekeeping, I think our attorney had asked for some letter with regard to the shot clock. Did she receive that, or what's the status, or did you not see it?
So my understanding was that the letter was supposed to be done after the fact, that we were supposed to, tonight at the meeting, extend it, and then the later would memorialize this board's extension. But we've discussed that such letter is really sitting in my inbox, ready for us to just format it and send it back over to Ashley.
Okay. That,
Yes, so that, we did discuss an initial extension of the shot clock to December 20th, 2022. That's a planning board meeting night. The applicants indicated, if things take more time to complete seeker and your review, then there could be future extensions, but just to get that on the record, and if the board wanted to entertain now a motion to extend the shot clock to December 20th, 2022, and authorize the planning board attorney to sign a tolling agreement regarding the same. That way I could sign the agreement with.
okay. Should we do that now, then? So I'll make a motion to that effect, what Ashley expressed to, told the shot clock to December 20th of 2022, and we'll have our attorney review the letter that's drafted up.
And sign the letter agreement regarding that extension.
Absolutely.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Yes. Okay, all in, Noreen?
Nick Napoli.
Aye.
Robert Garstock.
Aye.
Bonnie Franson.
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Okay, so with that, where do we want to go? Should we go to Sean's comments?
Sure, absolutely.
And then the last submission was at 8:25? Okay, so I just want to bring these up.
Yes, we submitted kind of 2 submissions. We had one on 8/25 and one just before we gave you the bare earth view shed maps. And then most recently on 8/25, we made a submission with revised plans that include the additional grading that was requested and additional information on the plans. I know Sean's going to go through his memo, but we did just receive his memorandum this morning, so we will provide revisions to our plans and provide additional materials to respond to all of these comments. I just wanted to note that one of the comment is regarding the balloon test and the visual resource evaluation. I think our main focus is we would like to schedule the balloon test. I think having that report, the visual resource evaluation report, is a very important component of this application. I think most people want to know what is the visibility of the tower going to be, where will the tower be visible from, and what is the tower going to look like. So I think that report will add a great deal of benefit to this application and to this board's review. We're proposing to schedule the balloon test for the week of October 3rd, but we're here tonight to discuss if that's agreeable to the planning board. If there's a different date in mind, we can try to accommodate that.
All right, so I guess first, did you want to make any kind of presentation first, or should we dive into the comments?
We can go right into the comments. Again, the presentation is the same application as you've heard at previous meetings. Verizon Wireless has a significant gap in coverage in this area. We are before the town zoning board of appeals, as this application requires a use variance as well. As part of that review, the town has retained a wireless consultant. This board has also chosen to retain the same wireless consultant, Cityscape. I hope this board has had the benefit of reviewing that memorandum, as that memorandum has stated that there is a need for this facility, is in a reasonable location, and that the height is justified. So we're really just focusing on hopefully narrowing the focus of this application to showing that we comply with the special permit criteria, or the criteria set for being in the overlay zone for the ridgeline protection area, as well as meeting the requirements for a site plan approval, and then before the zoning board, the requirements for the use variance.
All right, Sean, you want to start?
So, as this board is aware, there's a significant grading for the driveway to get up to the tower. I did speak with Ben since the last meeting, and he's been reaching out to the fire department on their comments and whether or not the proposed roadway meets the fire code, the state fire code for the driveway. The applicant did update the plans to provide two 12 by 50-foot emergency pull-off areas to try to keep the grading down below an acre for the threshold. I've not seen Ben's formal determination whether or not he fire code from the fire code, so it has to be ironed out. We're awaiting his. I did have a few comments with regards to the proposed drainage for the driveway, as well as down at the bottom, the culvert. So just looking for some technical input from the applicant on that. Comment about the driveway. Fencing. So there's fencing proposed around the entire cell tower. I forgot what you call it, compound, I think is what it was referred. So typically the board requires vinyl coated fencing, green or black, that's up to the planning board, what you guys prefer. Lighting. So there were details proposed on the plans. I didn't see where those lights were going to be on the plan, so we'll look for that update. There was a tree plan that was prepared, and a chart that identified all the trees that were 10 inches or greater in diameter that were going to be cut, except the code requires all trees that are 6 inches and greater that are going to be cut, so that'll have to be updated. We'll take a look at the leaf-off condition rendering, and the board had previously requested that additional topography information further provided just to understand how this was.
Quick response. First, with regard to the fence and the vinyl slats, if you notice where the equipment compound is proposed, it's in property
Yeah, if you could pull it closer to you.
The property where we have the equipment compound is densely vegetated. I don't know if the vinyl slats would provide any benefit because I'm not sure if anyone will actually be able to see the equipment compound. I think this will be better shown with the visual resource evaluation report where we take the photos. If this is a requirement of the planning board, we can absolutely accommodate it. I just wanted to question if there was an opportunity to have a waiver from this requirement, considering the location of the equipment compound and what benefit there is to achieve from having the privacy slats.
So the suggestion wasn't the privacy slats, it was vinyl coated on the galvanized fencing.
Makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
And then the next comment we had was regarding the leaf-off conditions. There was a request for us to provide the leaf-off photos. We have over 100 leaf-off photos, but I have 3 tonight that I wanted to provide to the board just to demonstrate that we do have leaf-off photos.
And the point of that is that when the eventual VRA, visual resource analysis, is completed, it will show both the current leaf-on conditions as well as the leaf-off photos, which I've already taken from the area. So it'll include both.
Where are these photos taken from?
From the viewpoints that are proposed on the view shed analysis, I went to all of those viewpoints myself and took photos from each of those locations so that we can have a comparable analysis.
Is it shown on this view shed map? Or a different one, or the bare earth? Or even a prior?
So we had a different view shed map that wasn't the bare earth.
Not on the mic. Sorry, it's not turning.
We actually submitted the land cover viewshed map that had the yellow photo locations on it. That was the one that had the proposed viewpoint locations.
Would have been part of the initial
We had handed it out to the board at the last meeting. I have a copy with me again tonight.
Did we have digital versions of those?
Yes, that was also emailed to Noreen. I can email it again if it's needed.
Yeah, I'm just going to see if I find it here real quick.
I don't believe it was submitted in the actual application. I believe this was a separate submission.
Oh, separate submission? Okay. Yeah, if you could bring it on up.
Sure. I have a copy with me tonight.
I think the electronic version's not in color, so if you could maybe resubmit the electronic in color.
So there are numerous yellow points here. You're saying these are 3 of them, just as a sample to show that it was during off-leaf? Okay.
So, exactly that. These are the photo locations for the ultimate balloon, but as Vince already went out and took photos during the leaf-off conditions, as the timing of this application was set up so that during a summer filing, it more likely than not would have had a leaf-on condition during a balloon test. As Sean has recommended, both the visual analysis include both a leaf-on and leaf-off condition. If we're able to get the balloon test done in the beginning of October, we'll have some leaves still on the trees so we can have a full representation year-round of the visibility of this tower.
All right, Sean, should we go to your comments? So do we just go through those?
Yeah, I was just responding to some of his comments afterwards.
Okay, right. Ashley? Long day.
And then one last final response was the topography that was requested. We actually did add it to the plans. If
Okay.
additional information needs to be added, we can absolutely do that. C26.
Yeah, my primary concern is it's really smack on the ridgeline. And it's in our OP, our overlay zone. And so from my perspective, and I'll get into this more, but just, what can be done to mitigate that? But Ashley, what comments do you have?
So speaking of the Ridgeline Preservation Overlay District, the applicant was noted, I think, in this submission, they're going to be submitting a narrative that addresses those standards so that the board can evaluate the compliance with the overlay requirements. I'd ask that on the plans on sheet SB1 and C1, you add the boundary line of the RPO. That way it's clear where that is. And also on the bulk table on sheet SB1, add a reference that it's in the RPO in addition to the underlying zoning district, and just a reference to the relevant town code section. Sean's memo did touch on the tree plan, so in addition to identifying the trees that are 6-inch caliber or greater, there's some additional requirements. There's some map notes that the code requires. I could provide the language for those map notes. Designate buffer zones of at least 15 feet along perimeters of the tree stands. If you go to the section 5784C, it will detail these additional requirements just to make sure you're complying on all of those, including the one-to-one basis of tree replacement that's required. And the tree plan will need to be referred to the Monroe Conservation Commission. Everything else I think we had discussed last time. It does require GML review. You did declare your intent to be lead agency, but the 30 days hasn't passed since I got that notice out, so we're just a day or two shy of that. So next month, you'll be able to assume lead agency status, assuming no objections were received.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I will start to my right. Dylan, do you have any comments?
Mentioned the balloon test will be October 3rd.
The week of October 3rd.
The week of October 3rd.
So we're looking to float that week, but if there's a preferred date from this board, we can try to make that happen.
Buddy, how do you feel about the October week? Because we would do it like an entire day just so that, because people's schedules vary, et cetera. Were you proposing to do it one day, or what were your thoughts?
Generally, we usually propose to do it for about 7 hours during the day, in the morning to the afternoon.
Well, generally speaking, we usually do it from like 8 to 12, because once the afternoon and the heat picks up, then the balloon starts to move around more. We can definitely accommodate and do it longer. The longer you go, the more wind effect you may have. But, we're willing and able to, we want to make itself as ideal. Whatever day we pick, we have a rollover to the following day for weather. The wind needs to be below at least like 7 miles per hour. So we usually let people know by noon the day previous whether or not it's good to go for the following day. But it would be a rollover to consecutive days, or however you see fit. If it was a situation where nobody's available on that Wednesday, skip that Wednesday. But really, we can work with you to accommodate, because we want everybody to have the opportunity to go see it.
Is it possible to do it on a weekend?
Yes, it is.
Okay. How do people feel about a weekend versus a weekday? Would it be easier to get out just to travel
Doesn't
around, see
matter.
it? Doesn't matter? Nick, preference, weekend versus,
Just Sunday is a problem for me, so Saturday I'm good.
okay. Anybody, any preferences?
Saturday's good for me, too.
Yeah,
Saturday the 1st or 2nd or 3rd, I'm available.
okay. So could you do it that first weekend in October? Is that possible?
So are you saying just in general, Sundays are no good in general? Okay. So what we could do, and I would need to get back to you, and I'd be able to do this relatively quickly. We can set it up now tentatively for 10/1 with a rollover to 10/8 the following Saturday to accommodate. And then if it gets pushed to second week,
Yeah, I
And
might
as
not
well
be
the
there
two-
on the 10th, or on that rollover.
the 10th is the Monday?
Maybe you could do it on a Friday and a Saturday, if that's possible,
Yeah.
because
Well,
then.
it would be one day, but roll over to the next, yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking maybe 2 days. If you did a Friday and a Saturday, you're covering both. Hopefully that stays. All right, so, yes?
I'm not here on the 2nd.
On the 2nd, Saturday? Yeah, same thing for me. So, well, let's shoot for the first weekend, and then we'll go from there.
So we're going to say October 1st with a potential
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the farther out you go, the more off-leaf you're going to get again anyway. Because I don't know if we're going to be fully off-leaf by October 1st. Usually it's like till November. Right, so, we may be driving around, but I don't know the extent to which we're going to see something if it's still leaf on. So, well, we'll see what happens, right?
That's again, the benefit of us having the leaf off photos already is so that the ultimate report, the visual resource evaluation, if we can have the leaf on photos now, then we'll have the full year-round visibility. We'll have leaf on and leaf off.
I think the big question is whether if we're driving around and we see a different location, a different vantage point, you may not have the photos for them.
Well, during the
well-
day, if you drive around to a different vantage point, we can provide email communication so that if there is a new viewpoint you want us to take a photo from during that day, we can try to accommodate as best as we can and send our person there. Usually what we'll do is we'll set up an email communication between a point of contact in the town and the point of contact for our balloon test person, and then basically from there, the communication is, we think we want to add a viewpoint here, this is the cross street, and we'll try to add that viewpoint.
Right. I think my concern is just, again, that during that time period, even if you add another vantage point and you're taking a photo, is it going to be on leaf or off leaf? But we'll get to that. We'll figure out how to deal with it at that point. Dylan, additional comments?
No.
Pat?
Amen.
Making me crazy. Again, I'm just going to express a concern, the height relative to, I don't know what the existing tree line is. The other concern is that it's not just the actual pole location, but you're having to clear out kind of a narrow, but a swath of trees to get the road into that location. So, when it comes to visual analysis, it's not just about the pole itself, but it's, are we just in general opening up views from certain vantage points because you're also you're removing trees along that driveway. And what is really the minimum to be able to put a tower up there that minimizes the extent to which you go over the tree line? And, if the existing vegetation, if it's mature and it's all 70 feet, maybe we would do stealth, maybe we wouldn't. I think it's the context of what's out there right now, and if it's going to look right. But certainly, again, I think from my perspective, first and foremost is that you're in an area that, we're trying to limit impacts to, and you're right in the midst of it. So, you pick the highest point to be able to situate the tower, and I think we need to consider the impacts, so.
That's really what I tried to do when we were putting this application together. That's why this tower is only 100 feet tall as proposed. A lot of other applications you'll see, it's generally a 150-foot tower. We worked with the RF engineers of Verizon to make sure that was taken into account and tried to come in with the application as low as we possibly could need it. You do need to be above the tree lines in order for the signal to propagate, so that the fact that it's on parcel. You got to be really close to this thing, huh? Yeah, sorry. As far as the access road itself, hopefully during the balloon float, I'd love the opportunity to actually walk the site with you or set up a separate site visit, because we're using an existing access pathway there. So we really did that in order to minimize the amount of trees that need to be removed. And I think once we're out there, you'll really see that the impact to tree removal is as minimal as possible in order to put it in a spot where it's going to be far away from homes and meet setbacks. I think a site visit definitely will illustrate that a little bit better.
Right, so we should probably organize a site visit for this as well, outside of the visual analysis, and, when you're going to float the balloons, and just to see the site. And again, I think to get the pole in, how much are you having to clear on either side? And is the compound area and the way that the limits of disturbance are shown, is that realistic, again, relative to the length of, the tower that you're going to put up there? And then I guess, another comment is that while we always want to co-locate, if it turns out to be highly visible, there is an option that you don't co-locate, and that you provide the tower for yourselves. And, you could even, again, go to the antenna inside the pole if necessary. And there's a downside to that, because it may mean more poles or more towers if other carriers want to put it up. But I think that's all things we need to examine as part of the evaluation.
I agree, and we can discuss that further, but just to make a distinction too, like I'm Homeland Towers. I'm the one that's going to develop, build, and own the site. I'm not Verizon. So when we say build it just for our purposes, sure, that may accommodate Verizon's needs, but as a tower developer, we wouldn't be able to have a site potentially where just one carrier could co-locate on it. And yes, that would lead to a proliferation of more towers. We could discuss Southland options based on the visibility as we move forward as well. Just to go back to your comment regarding the length of the tower, it doesn't come in a 100-foot piece either. It stacks onto each other, almost like a Lego. This one, it'll probably still be 3 pieces, but regardless, the grading as we've shown in the plans is as accurate and true as we anticipate that it will be. The pieces come on one flatbed, generally nested inside of each other. They get taken to the site, taken out of the tower pieces, and then put right next to it. And then a crane comes up and stacks them. So the area of disturbance, as we indicated, is as true as possible.
Okay, so you don't, to have the crane maneuvering there, you don't need additional area. And also, what is the maximum length of a piece of the tower?
I'd have to get back to you what the maximum length of a piece would be, but in this instance, since it's a 100-foot tower, obviously no piece is going to be more than 50 feet, I would theorize. Generally, they come in like, 40-foot pieces and stacked on top of each other, but I would imagine that no piece would be larger than 50, but that actually, determination doesn't happen until the site's approved. We do geotechs and we have the tower manufacturer design the site, because that takes into account, the way it's designed is based on structural integrity, so I would have to get back to you with a more accurate answer on that one.
But they are built to spec, so it's based on the design for this site. And then just as a rebuttal to the comment being on the elevation, the higher elevation, that's kind of the push and pull here. It's the reason why we are able to have a 100-foot tower and not a 150-foot or 120-foot tower is because we're gaining ground elevation and height. But ultimately, I think all of the stuff we're talking about now, we can tell you as much as we can about how it's not a visual impact or it's not going to be an eyesore. I think it's the visual resource evaluation that's really going to color this application and answer most of these questions.
Understood. And I understand that with regard to its line of sight, so you need to get above the tree line. But again, we're balancing somewhat competing interests. Just to clarify, are you representing Homeland or Homeland and Verizon?
Both. I am representing Homeland and Verizon.
Okay, but you are solely Homeland, and Verizon would be leasing from your tower?
Correct.
Okay. And do we have a copy of the lease agreement? You're leasing, correct? And you have a lease area?
I ground lease with the landlord. We
Yeah.
didn't submit that as part of the application. Generally, that doesn't get submitted as part of applications because the lease itself is proprietary for business purposes, and generally that doesn't get put into an application that would then be foilable. If you have specific concerns or questions, I can definitely address them.
Yeah, I'd be curious so it can be redacted. I'm just curious about what the area is that you're leasing, if that's been established already, or if that's subject to change. If you needed to move the pole in any direction, a little, a little to the west, the east, the south, a little downhill, whatever, is it set in stone already where it has to be located?
It is right now. The lease exhibit that's provided, which dictates the location of the tower, is an exhibit to the lease. So any, shift would require an amendment with the ground landlord.
Okay.
If there's some situation where you thought moving it over a little bit would be better.
But it's an attachment. It's not narrative in the lease itself.
No, it's not within the lease itself, but as an attachment, I think it's actually more accurate.
Yeah,
because-
yeah, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
so it's something, it's the same as whatever we're seeing in terms of the proposal.
Yeah, essentially, it's a little bit larger than our compound area, just for a little bit of room to, if you have to install in something outside of the equipment compound, like a meter or something like that, but generally, it's pretty close to what we're showing on the plans.
And the equipment compound is including all potential carriers?
Correct. It's being
That
built
was my
out for all
recollection.
carriers, as well as if there was a need for municipal equipment, we have space reserved for them as well. Again, and the location is really dictated by where the clearing is on the property. So again, they tried to balance this interest of making sure that we have a facility that can provide the services that it needs to provide, with also minimizing our intrusion into the community. And I think, with the tree clearing and those comments about the land disturbance impact, I think one of the main gating factors is, what is the building inspector going to require for our access drive? I think we're trying to minimize the amount of tree removal as best as possible, but that's right now, it's a moving target until we figure out exactly what the driveway design is going to look like.
Matt, do you have comments?
No comment.
Did I go through this already, Bob? Did you have comments?
No comment.
And Nick?
No, my question was going to be about access for the fire department and things. So since that's covered already, I have nothing left.
Okay. Nick, did you have anything?
No. Can you just go over a definition overlay boundary? Was that having to pertain to like the?
That overlay there?
the
That
trees
keeps
or-
coming on and off.
Was that a map? Is that a mapping thing or?
So that is on the zoning map. It's the Ridge Protection Overlay Zone.
Okay.
And the intent is to limit disturbances and limit activities within it, so that you try and situate buildings and disturbances outside of that area on a property.
So there are no outside visuals on the ridge.
Correct. So that you're not notching out the ridge, that someone's not clear cutting the top of a ridge and, having structures and buildings that are very visible from a lot of vantage points in the town. We're trying to really protect the views of the forested lands within the town. So that's what the intent is of the Ridge Protection Overlay, and it's an actual zoning district. Yep.
That's why a cell tower is a perfect use for this. Because if you can think,
There's a lot of ridges in the town, though, and not all of them are mapped.
well, that's the thing. This isn't just about just finding a ridge. It has to be one that's in a location that actually meets the needs of
Right.
RF or Verizon. And trust me, if I could have found a spot off the ridge,
Well,
we would have.
I
But
think that's the other thing,
Yeah.
just to make sure that, in fact, as part of the RF analysis, and was there an alternative sites analysis, and, and that's the other thing to consider, is there potentially another site that wasn't considered? In theory, alternative technologies, small wireless carriers. Is there anything that could have accommodated the need without having to put something within that overlay zone, which really isn't consistent with it?
I think at this point, the benefit of your wireless consultant should be really focused on those questions.
Yep.
We did submit a alternatives analysis. Before we chose this property, we did review to see what was the least intrusive available opportunity to fill this gap in coverage. We feel that we've presented the least intrusive opportunity, but you can always have your consultant verify that. We did submit an alternatives analysis, and I think alternative technologies such as DAS or small cell, those are really supposed to be used to fill in additional kind of smaller gaps in coverage and really relieve capacity. You're still going to need macro sites, and in an area like this, you will need a macro site to fill this gap in coverage, as well as communicate to the surrounding towers that are at capacity. So this is a dual function of this tower relieving capacities from surrounding towers, as well as filling in gap in coverage. You really do need a macro site.
As a total aside, that doesn't have to do with the town of Monroe, but there's, at least my Verizon experience, is that there's real issues going down the thruway, and I haven't figured out why, because it didn't used to be like that. But basically all the way from Harriman down to Sloatsburg, very, very poor reception.
At a subsequent meeting, we'll have a Verizon RF guy, and I tell him, and I'll record it, and I'll try to find a tower there. There's a lot of variables.
And that's the irony, because there are at least 2 towers. There's at least 2 in Tuxedo, and I believe there's one in Sloatsburg. So I'm not understanding why suddenly the change in service where it's 1 bar, 2 bars maybe.
People are using their phones more. So you're having more capacity demand on these sites, and with the upgrade in technology to provide that more capacity, the coverage footprint for a lot of these sites is actually shrinking. So the user demand and the technology that's being deployed is actually shrinking the coverage footprint from these sites, necessitating more and more towers.
So when you say the technology, the 5G,
Correct.
so with 5G, it provides less coverage?
Correct. It's
So
less,
any given monopole, it's not covering as much area.
not as much area, but the amount of bandwidth for that coverage is severely increased. So the amount of data downloads, the amount of information that can be put through on the spectrum is a lot greater for the 5G, and that's the benefit of 5G technology. But 5G doesn't operate by itself. It still works in coordination with the other, we'll call it the LTE technologies. So this facility, if it does have antennas that propagate 5G services, there likely is also going to be LTE services here as well. Specifically considering the area that we're in, you're likely going to see much more of LTE coverage from this particular facility.
So just because 5G is available doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to have 5G, or you're saying it will?
It may. It's ultimately a technology that Verizon can put. These facilities, these structures do support 5G technology. It's just whether or not when it's being rolled out, it depends on a bunch of factors, economics, user demand, topography in the area, other services in the area. We can confirm with Verizon if the initial build is to include 5G, but ultimately, this facility will be able to support 5G services if it's needed.
So
Just one thing, we're talking about technologies and 5G, 4G. The only difference really is the frequency. It's still, the lower 700 megahertz is LTE 4G. 5G is in the gigahertz range. So it's a different frequency band, which means you have more, more peaks and valleys, which allows more input, but that signal doesn't go as far as the more wavy one. So the lower band, the 4G, is more wavy. It goes farther, but it doesn't have as much information in it. 5G has more information in it, but it just doesn't go as far. So, I don't know, I hope that helps.
I understood
Yeah, okay.
it. I understood it the first time, but I appreciate the visual.
Let's try it.
So are there any performance guarantees or threshold requirements in the lease agreement between the two for land use?
You mean performance guarantees for like Verizon guarantee, or
I
whole
guess
land guarantee?
bandwidth capacity thresholds. Is there anything outlined in terms of performance guarantee in current state versus future state?
No, so those would be regulated by the FCC, and those are also, consumer and kind of provider agreements. As far as the information about what is to be provided from this facility, we provided a radio frequency justification report by Mike Crosby, Verizon's RF engineer. That has information about the size of the coverage footprint, the different technologies that are being offered. I'm not sure if it's going to have as much as what the exact bandwidth is from this, but it'll give information for what the coverage from this facility will be.
So to that point, because of how you explain the changes in coverage from 4G to 5G, is the analysis done using 5G assumptions or 4G assumptions, or how is the gap analysis done?
So as Vincent is explaining, there's different frequencies that are offered. So the analysis was done under the low band frequencies as well as the high band frequencies. So 5G may operate on any of those. This is a little bit of a difference between technology and spectrum. So the 5G technology can operate, as Vincent said, on the higher gigawatts. The higher frequencies is usually where you see it. It can also operate on the lower frequencies. However, really what you're looking for in the coverage gap is the lower frequencies has a larger coverage footprint, so that way you would more likely show a larger, or actually in this case, a smaller coverage gap, because the coverage from the surrounding sites extends further. And then what we've also showed at the higher frequency, there would be a larger coverage gap because the surrounding coverage from the surrounding sites doesn't propagate as far.
So you're showing both frequencies
Correct.
on the map?
Well, we're showing the low and the high. There's also mid frequencies, but again,
But
by
the
showing,
worst and the-
we're bookending it by
Okay.
showing the worst and the best.
Okay. When you go to replace antenna, if you've already installed a cell tower and there's antenna there, and you go to the new technology, do you switch them out, or do you normally add on? So for this particular pole, are you going to have a set of antenna that are a particular frequency, or you're going to try and cover both frequencies, bandwidth, for the low and the high?
That's really an RF engineer question. My experience is that when you put up the tower, and let's say we'll have 12 antennas to start out with, an application for a modification to an existing site, they would probably include replacement and addition, or it may just be replacement. It may actually be a replacement that comes from 12 to 9 antennas. It's all speculative because it depends on what their need is for that particular site and that particular upgrade. But most likely than not, it would include a replacement of antennas as well as possibly an addition. But they will all be on most likely the same antenna array or same center line.
And my question related again to this change in coverage, which just may be, I don't know, age of technology, but is it possible that the antenna for 4G are being swapped out for 5G, and so the coverage isn't going as far? Is that a possibility? Or can that happen in general? That you swap out 4G technology for the 5G technology, and then it's just not going as far, even though you have more data, with.
Is the question for this particular site or for surrounding site? I'm not.
Well, now that I was thinking about the issue on the thruway, it made me wonder with this site, because then, do we get ourselves in a position where if we're trying to accommodate the new technology, you actually need more poles?
You will need more poles. I mean, that's just a matter of fact of this technology. It may be more poles, it may be more rooftop sites, it may be a combination of more poles and small cell technology. But yeah, wireless technology isn't going away. The user demand is growing and growing. I think the latest reports are that more than 50% of American households are wireless only and don't have landline phones, and that's growing. The majority of 911 phone calls are made from wireless devices. So this is a technology that's here to stay.
But you're basically going toward 5G, in other words, also, or not necessarily.
So 5G is the next technology. After 5G, there'll be 6G, 4G, and before that was 3G. The technology will always evolve to meet the consumer demand, to innovate, to make the services better. But there is still the need for not just 5G technology today, but a combination, low and high band.
Okay,
So that's what's being provided from this. So
Okay.
the 5G is higher data demand, but there's still that need for the lower spectrum that handles a lot more.
That gets back to the question about the antenna on this pole. Are they for both the low and the high, or it's determined at a later point in time?
I'd have to confirm exactly with the RF engineer, because there's going to be 3 different types of antennas, most likely, and probably it'll be low, mid, and high. But honestly, I can't confidently state that that's exactly what it is, because now we're talking into an area of expertise that I just don't have. We can confirm with our RF engineer, but ultimately, the antennas that are being put up are to provide the services for low band through high band and to meet all of the services.
For each carrier?
No. This is for Verizon.
Well, but your tower's going up so that it can be co-located. So when Verizon gets their first dibs, as far as the pole, are you taking up one full location and then the next person's down on,
Correct.
and the next person's down?
Correct.
Or do you take multiple locations on the pole? And so then theoretically less co-location.
So in more, and Vincent's going to show the drawing that shows where we have set out in the, if you go to, I believe, the elevation sheet, we show out there, so that's Verizon at top. Below them, approximately about 10 feet below would be the next co-location carrier, and then approximately 10 feet below that. Generally, there's about a 10-foot separation between each carrier to prevent RF interference. And yes, Verizon would operate that, we'll call that center line height, and that would be their real estate, so to speak. Below that would be the next carrier that has a need in this area. And so they each have their own center line height for their antennas.
And then how many carriers are we talking about for this particular pole? 3?
So right now, we only have one. It can accommodate up to 3, I believe, 4.
Usually it's 3 to, usually I
Well,
see 3, I don't know how
No,
many
listen,
could come.
as the developer, obviously, it's in my best interest to make sure that the tower structurally can support all of the currently FCC licensed carriers in the market. And right now, there is 4. Obviously, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, which bought Sprint. As part of that, Dish Network is actually a real player in the industry now. They are going on other towers that I've owned as well.
A Dish?
Dish Network,
Okay.
yeah. As part of the T-Mobile Sprint merger, I don't know, the DOJ or Department of State or something, DOJ, made it a part of a requirement that in order to not reduce competition, that Dish Network be allowed to use some of T-Mobile's spectrum for a limited time as they build out their own network. So Dish Network is building out their own network. When I designed the tower, and we'd be open to having this be a requirement as part of any approval you may see fit to give, that the tower be designed to accommodate 4 carriers and municipal whips at the top. And, doing that now is best, because when as we were talking about before, deciding what lengths the tower pieces will be, we can make sure that the tower and the foundation are designed for 4+ municipal antennas at the top.
So in theory, you could also do 3 and go down 10?
No. The 100-foot right now is the minimum height with a 96-foot center line, where Verizon's middle of their antenna would be, is the minimum height they're willing to accept in order to meet the coverage needs as they see them for their network.
That's what I'm missing, is how do you quantitatively display those performance limits that are not being displayed at this meeting, whereas I need X at 100 feet, or we're not going any lower?
Did you do an analysis at 90 and at 80? Because I've seen that done with other applications. Was that included here?
I can double check the radio frequency justification report. I don't believe that was done. But again, the height that we're proposing at 100 feet is a relatively low height. And from our radio frequency engineers, they've stated that that 96-foot centerline height is the minimum height necessary. That's been confirmed by the town's wireless consultant. We can try to provide more information on that and maybe bring our radio frequency engineer to a next meeting or to the public hearing to explain exactly to the board in their own words why we need this height. But the height that we're proposing, that is the minimum height for Verizon. The structural capacity of the tower has been built out to support additional carriers, but the height has been designed just for Verizon.
So why would 90 work for some and 100 only works for Verizon?
I have no knowledge if 90 would work for some or not. And again, it becomes a business decision. So
Okay.
Verizon's has their minimum coverage, that's what they need, but they're also investing money into this to build an infrastructure. Another carrier may come in and say, we'll be willing to do less than coverage because we don't have to build the infrastructure. This is a co-location site. There's less money to invest into this site. But again, this is all speculation because we don't have, not having what T-Mobile or Dish's or AT&T's needs are for this area, it's just speculation at this point. All we can do is ensure that the tower can support in capacity these carriers, but it's a little bit, if you build it, they will come, but we're not really
Right.
sure what their needs are.
So I guess what I take away from that is, in theory, then, it's possible you don't get co-location because someone may determine that it doesn't work for them at a 90 or an 80-foot height. The other thing, the other takeaway is that to do coverage analyses to prove that it can't be done at 80 or 90 at a lower height. I'd be curious what that results in. And I've seen it done in other communities. And is the coverage map substantially different at those 10-foot lower increments?
We can look into that and see if that can be updated into our radio frequency justification report.
Yeah, I've seen it like overlaid, maps that overlay so that you could see what it's like at 100 and then maybe what it's at 80, and in different colors. It gets a little messy.
It is a little confusion, especially,
Yeah.
but we've done it before where we have it, one page after the other so that you just flip
Right.
the page or click on the screen and you can see
Right.
the difference. We could try to do that. Again, the need for this facility is also the capacity. So we do have where our location is. The height is also dictated by our line of sight to these other existing towers so that we can make sure that, we're not only just providing the coverage, but we're also connecting that coverage to the existing coverage to provide that seamless coverage.
Is there another site, do you have an application into the town of Chester at this time? Or Blooming Grove?
No.
I thought I read or we saw something about, I saw somewhere that there's a tower proposed, I think, in a neighboring community.
There is another tower proposed in Chester. I was originally involved with that. I found the site, and then another developer came in, and they're developing that. So no, I'm not involved with that right now. Verizon is part of that application. That won't have any bearing on this application because the coverage footprints don't overlap.
You know where that one is? Generally?
That one.
Could you find
I
out?
can get it for you, yes.
Yeah, if you could find out, because
Well,
is it far away, or is it, it sounded like from the discussion I had seen that it may be close enough that there is overlap, but I'm not exactly sure, and that could have been stated, and it may not be accurate, but I'd be curious where that other application is the site is.
Judging where the town of Chester is versus where this is, I'd be very unlikely that would have overlapping coverage, but we can look into that and get you a response.
Because I think you're really close to the town of Chester border right here. Yeah, so, okay. Anything else?
Looks like that tower is at the intersection of Juniper Lane and Poplar Drive
That other one?
in Chester.
Poplar Drive, there's a municipally owned property. You may be able to see it in the satellites. It's vacant. Yeah, if you bring it up, you can show.
You tell me how tall the Verizon property is from the top of that tower down. I know when it's at the bottom of it, you would then begin somebody else's 10 feet later. But of the 96 foot, which is your midline, how much below that do you go? So do
Well,
you go?
I own the whole tower. I have leased 10 feet to Verizon.
I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, you've leased, yeah, but the
They basically get 100 foot to 90 foot in order to give space for their antennas in case in the future they
so
get a
the
little
next
longer.
piece of property can begin at 89 feet.
Well, there would be an antenna center line 86, 87 feet, but the next carrier, yes, would get 90 to 80 feet. The following carrier would get 80 to 70. And as we talk about other carriers, I don't want to get too much into other carriers, because obviously this application.
No,
is
my
Verizon,
only
but-
question really was
yeah.
if from the top of their 10 feet, if their equipment only comes down 5, then realistically in the 90 to 80 foot, they're not going to begin their property until 85 feet because they want 10 feet in between so there's no RF interference. If your equipment is 10 feet tall, then the next guy's carrier's got to be looking really at not getting 90 to 80, but 80 to 70.
It's 10 feet between center line heights, not 10 feet from bottom of antenna to top of antenna. So generally 96 feet, that would necessitate 86 feet, then 76 feet.
So this is the site here, Poplar, over by Walton Park? Is that where it is, near Walton Park?
Yeah, if you zoom in there and you go to the satellite, it'll be obvious there's like a clearing at the end of Poplar Drive.
This one's in application right now, as far as we know. So maybe somewhere off of here. In here? Okay, so that's not there, or that?
The site's just started the zoning process for that.
Okay. So if that's,
Awfully close.
yeah, so I was,
Talking to them.
So this is Strauss, correct, over here? I think that's Strauss.
Correct.
So this is Strauss, and this is Walton Lake, or right here.
Can you zoom on to confirm that's Strauss?
Sure.
We can give this other guy the wireless mic.
Oh, no, that's Bolenbach. That's Bolenbach. Where is Strauss? Strauss? Oh, this is Strauss. I had it before. So off of this master chimney, oh, let me zoom in just real quick.
You just click and do like a line between the two
That's
points
Strauss.
for the distance?
I don't think I could do it on the web,
Okay,
but I
well,
could probably
we can,
do it.
we have the information on where this application site is, and we can have our RF engineer speak to it on whether or not there's an expectation to have overlapping coverage, or whether or not the coverage from that site would even impact our facility.
Okay. Yeah, and are we aware of any other applications, or that's the only other one right now?
That's the only one we're aware of. I mean, we don't have any other Verizon towers going in this area, but we did include in our RF justification report surrounding sites. So
Oh, you included this one, or no?
no, surrounding existing sites. This is not an existing site yet. We've just learned about this, so I'll go ahead and have our RF engineer see if he can confirm if there's any overlapping coverage that would be predicted from this site, or if there's any impact from this site to our facility.
So I understood this other site to be a Verizon site, but maybe I'm wrong. Did you say that this was Verizon?
Verizon is one of the applicants,
On-
as far as
on
I
Poplar.
understand, but I'm not involved with it as Homeland Towers. But
Okay.
my understanding is Verizon's a part of the application.
Of the application?
And-
So.
And
so-
I don't represent Verizon on every single application, so they have other counsel representing on that. And I'm not aware of what status that application is, but Verizon's RF engineer will have the information for that site, and we can absolutely ask him to opine whether or not there's going to be any impact from that facility and this facility. Judging from the distance, I don't think there will be, but we'll ask him the question and have him give his opinion.
So I'm thinking about then, how do we ensure that, because normally in an application, we ask where are all the other proposed locations, whether existing and proposed. And if this one wasn't included, then how do we know others aren't included? Verizon, how do we know that there aren't two other Verizon towers nearby that are being proposed in Blooming Grove and in Goshen, or some other community, or Woodbury? So, because you don't represent them all, you don't necessarily have knowledge of them, but someone in Verizon should have knowledge of all the towers.
We're going to ask. We're going to ask and have them update the report.
Okay.
The report we had the information we had at that time.
Okay.
And we'll have them update the report.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So I think that's it at this point. We took the action on the shot clock, and we'll be
Scheduling a balloon
scheduling
test
the
for
balloon
October
test
1st.
and coordinating a site visit as well.
Um,
And Strauss Lane, is that the Strausses that live at Strauss Lane? The newspaper Strausses? Or is that a different Strauss?
The woman that calls me has a different last name, but
Okay.
she calls to check on the application all the time. Yeah, she's very sweet. She's checking up on you.
Okay, so yeah, we'll be coordinating, so coordinate with Noreen, and then she always includes, she'll bring in Ashley, Sean, whoever needs to be part of that conversation, and then we'll nail down this site visit as well.
Just as an idea, sometimes it provides a benefit. I'm not sure what opportunity the town has for this. If we're going to have the balloon test and we confirm it for October 1st, there may be some benefit to posting on the town website, just that we're doing an October 1st date in case people see an orange balloon flying in the sky and they don't know what it's for.
Yeah, and we actually oftentimes in other communities will post it even as a public notice, so people can't say they weren't given notice. And at a minimum, on the website, be useful.
Yeah, and even more than notice, if there's any members of the public that are, I think this is televised, right? Or
Yes.
that are listening to me now, have certain viewpoints that they're concerned about, I would encourage them to reach out to you so that you could dictate those viewpoints to me. We want to have this analysis done, in a cooperative manner to make sure that anybody's concerns, whether it's a board member or a member of the public, who has a specific viewpoint they're worried about, that we go and
document
that while we're out there. So I would encourage anybody to let us know.
Right.
Yeah.
I would suggest we send this application to the town of Chester so that they're aware of it. I suspect they may be, just because we've become aware of it through the chatter on Facebook, et cetera. But just so they have it, so we're coordinating with them. All right. Anything else?
Actually, we did send them as an interested agency.
Okay, good.
I was gonna say, she called me the other day about it, and she was supposed to be sending me our form back, and she hasn't done that.
But that was just to the town, it wasn't to the planning board, so I don't know if maybe you want.
Maybe to the planning board, chairperson.
And also with respect to preparing a notice for the balloon test, did we get a time for when that? I think we said tentatively October 1st.
Yeah, so generally we do it 8 to 12, but if you wanted it longer, tell me
We
now,
do
we'll make-
like 8 to 2?
Sure.
Yeah, just a little longer? Okay.
And the alternate date would be 10:15, same time? Is that?
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that sounds reasonable. Hopefully that works, and if not, we'll figure it out.
The 8 to time, can we have it say that it'll be done 5 hours or 5 consecutive hours between 8 to 2? Generally, or,
Right? 9, 10, 11, 12.
no, I'm trying to limit you with an hour, because the idea being that if we have a balloon that has to go up and we get there, there's sometimes some setup time, there's sometimes some wind. If you give a little bit of a cushion period there, it's more likely that we can achieve the balloon float rather than trying to rush it, and then you have an instance where it wasn't up exactly at 8 o'clock, or if it was too windy, or if there was a string issue.
So let's say, 8 to 2, but when we post the notice, say 9 to 1? In other words, are you saying that?
Or just say 5 consecutive hours between 8 to
I
2.
guess the point is that we want to make sure that the public's aware of what specific time it will be visible. So if you want to give us a cushion, I think that's fine. But to say 5 consecutive hours, if someone went looking for it at 8 a.m. and didn't see it,
We're going to hear
I
about it.
think, yeah, I think just to.
I'll endeavor to have it up from 8 to 2, but we'll tell the public from 9 to 1 in case, if the balloon pops or something that could happen. But I'll still endeavor, and generally what we do is we have an email chain going. As soon as the balloon goes up, I send an email to everybody saying it's up. If there's a problem and it pops, I'll send an email saying, hey, it's down right now, and then re-notify everybody when it's up. But I think that's a good idea,
That seem We'll post notice, and then we should post it on the website.
I'll just do the notice for 10 to the October 1st date for now, and if anything changes after that and needs to be moved, we'll do another
Have enough
notice.
time.
Something in the notice that the date may change due to inclement weather. Just as a notice that, if you have a very cloudy or windy day with low visibility, we're not going to float the balloon. We'll notify the board, but the notice may want to include that just so the public knows as well.
Okay. You have examples that you'd like to send over?
Sample notices?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. You could send those to Ashley. So they have sort of those conditions and caveats.
Worked through this language before, we can
I'm
provide
sure
you.
you have. All right. Anything else? No? All right.
We never decided on our black or green fence, guys.
I say black.
Black school, man, I was just kidding. But, by the way, just as a little, a lighter comment, I have no idea about, the implications of, the technology so ignorantly. I was just like, what are side effects for living near a cell phone tower? And you know what came up? The only downside you would have for living near a tower is if you climbed it without the proper climbing equipment. That's the downside. That's the danger of having a tower in your neighborhood. So maybe provide some good climbing equipment for people who break into your facility.
We don't want to encourage anybody climbing the tower.
They're going to
There used
zip
actually
line
be
from
issues
tower to
Get
tower.
put some helmets there, leave stuff there.
Back in the day when there was actually, now they use fiber cables to go from their ground equipment up to the antenna, but back in the day they used to use copper lines. So people would go in there and steal these copper lines because it's tons of copper and they would
sell
steal them, People asked us in the past, when I first started doing this, if we could put barbed wire on the top of the things, and obviously we don't want to do that. But yeah, we don't want to make it climbable. There are climbing pegs on it, but they're obviously high enough up where you need a ladder.
I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
That's the only downside. That's the only danger is just don't climb it.
Yeah.
There's no radiation, nothing like that. That's like a common, you don't know.
Obviously, as part of this application, we submitted the MPE report. I would ask you to look at that.
Yeah.
And if any questions come up, we can answer them. Climate and
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, so that was the last item on our agenda. Wait. Ward, you're still here. Is there anything you want to offer as far as anything going on at the Monroe Conservation? You're good? Okay, thanks. I was going to say wait again.
I don't know
It's
why you
stuck.
can't say anything, but I have a question before everybody departs.
Yes.
This is more, I'm not sure what to do with this project. Do you remember the Gomez project?
The apartment?
The accessory apartment in the basement that then they built the staircase?
Yes,
Okay,
that
so-
kept changing. Yeah.
Right. So the Soros family has been to the ZBA.
Okay,
The ZBA granted the application for a 1,450 square foot apartment,
okay.
not a two-family dwelling. So the question is, Ben keeps coming to me and saying, are they going back to the planning board? I'm like, I don't know, they got their variance. How do I know if they're going back? I know I've spoken to you, so I pulled out the minutes from our meeting, and you guys spoke of a two-family dwelling, a use variance that they would need. But the ZBA gave them an area variance, saying that it would be an existing accessory apartment of 1,470 square feet, but it has multiple conditions, and one of the condition is when the father passes, it's for health reasons that they're doing this. When the father passes, they have to remove the extra staircase and put it back to a 750 square foot accessory apartment, because the mother would still live there, but wouldn't need the access to the upper floor. So are they supposed to be coming
Well,
back to you?
so, I mean, go ahead.
I recall, I believe when Ben had made the determination as far as what might be needed from the ZBA, he asked that the ZBA, if it has to go back to the planning board, specify that in their decision, as I presume as a condition. So if they haven't done so, I think it doesn't need to come back to the planning board, but perhaps we could ask the ZBA attorney or chair to confirm.
Yeah, because I think they're supposed to have an accessory apartment permit. They violated the original permit. Regardless, they may have inherited it, but they have then inherited a violation. And it got resolved at the ZBA, but there's no paperwork that says that that's been now approved, because we approved the accessory apartments, not
So
them.
if you have to approve the accessory apartment, then I'd imagine you have to,
Okay, then they have to come back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have to approve accessory apartments.
I'd have to check.
Yeah.
You
I think
have
you
to
do.
approve
Yeah, because they had
Right.
been coming to us, unless it changed, unless the town board changed that. I don't
No,
think so.
there's been no change there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could, I'll look at that and we could talk about that
Okay,
this
so
week
I was
and
just,
see.
because.
Yeah, just to have them come in and do a resolution memorializing
That's
that.
basically, and then once her father passes, they have, I mean, it's on the deed and everything, that once Jose is no longer in that apartment, it has to be taken down. And it would be reviewed every year by Ben, because that's an accessory apartment. He has to go every year to review the the apartment itself. And if Jose isn't there anymore,
Because this is like the third time that same site was in front. The planning board saw it when the very first owners converted it without any permit. Then the second occupants got an approval, and then allegedly they increased it and put the staircase in. And then the Gomez,
Gomez is the one who put the staircase in.
Gomez
They
is,
took it out, put it back in when they got the CO. After they got the CO, they put it back in.
okay.
They sold the house as the 1,450
Right.
square feet.
And
This
so now it's a
woman had
new,
no idea
yeah, now it's a new
that's all
property
this
owner.
stuff.
So that's like literally the third group now that we're dealing
So, yeah,
with.
so then Soros moved in, had pictures of it, as that's how it was up on the website with the apartment, and they bought it knowing that her father would stay in there, and then they went to file for a permit for a shed, and Ben said, oh, we need to make an appointment for your apartment. She goes, what are you talking about? And that's how this all came about, and they've been approved at the ZBA at this point.
Okay,
So then I will tell that they have to come back here.
yeah. Just a reminder, I think there were some educational opportunities coming up, especially SECRA, being offered by the Rockland County Planning Federation. And then I think we were going to try and maybe between now and the end of the year, at least get in an hour of training. Either maybe you, Sean, or Ashley can offer something.
Sure.
How to read a map, or general subdivision information, or just something educational. I was talking about educational. Seeker is being done by Rockland, but perhaps we could do some basics for extra, for the educational credits. So we could talk about that between now and December, maybe just get one in. Okay? All right. Anything else? Anybody want to bring up? Anything? No? All right. Would someone make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any denials? No. Okay, motion carries. We're